I never cried in public until I saw my own brother planning to steal everything my mother left behind, and my wife was helping him. I've never been the man who falls apart in front of anyone. Not when the oncologist first said pancreatic cancer, stage 4, in a voice flat as hospital linoleum. Not during the endless months of watching my mother, Eleanor Ellie Whitaker, grow smaller and quieter in that small mystic hospital room with its one narrow window framing the river. Not even at the simple memorial service where the coastal fog drifted in so thick it blurred the faces of the few people who came. Ellie lived with a quiet, unshakable strength for 40 years as the head librarian of our little village in Mystic, Connecticut. She could spot a child who needed a story to feel safe, recommend the perfect novel to carry someone through grief, and she built her own life the same way. Careful, deliberate, enduring. The classic shingled Cape Cod home perched above the Mystic River, its wide porch swing creaking gently in the salt breeze, and facing the iconic drawbridge. The 3-unit rental building in the village center that sent dependable monthly deposits like clockwork. The modest but thoughtfully diversified investment portfolio she reviewed every month at the kitchen table, ledger open beside her coffee mug, pencil in hand. When she finally slipped away in the fall of 2022, I was 55. That first night, I stayed in her reading nook until the sky lightened to gray, fog pressing cold against the window panes, moonlight tracing slow, soft paths across the spines of her favorite books. The foghorn sounded low and steady, like a heartbeat slowing. No tears came, just silence. My younger brother, Nathan, flew in from Seattle the day after the service. His new wife's arm was looped through his like they were posing for a photo. Their hugs lasted a measured beat too long. Their eyes moved over the room. The antique oak sideboard Ellie had refinished herself, the framed family photos on the mantel, the river view through the bay window, with a brightness that had nothing to do with morning. Ellie's old caution rose in my mind like cold water rising. The hungriest show up first when the table's cleared. Claire and I had been married 22 years. She was the one who left small notes in my lunch bag on long work days, who kept our household finances balanced to the last cent, who could turn a tense family gathering into an evening of laughter with her quick wit and warm smile. Our marriage had become as familiar as the tide outside our door. Predictable, comforting, always returning. I never felt the slow, invisible current pulling us apart until everything had already shifted irreversibly. If you've ever been betrayed by the people closest to you, people you shared a home with, a history with, a future with, stay with me. This is how the truth finally broke through the surface. The betrayal unfolded in slow, excruciating layers. Claire and Nathan had been in secret contact for nearly 2 years before Ellie's diagnosis became terminal. It began innocently enough. Texts after a Thanksgiving dinner in Mystic, shared old photos from childhood summers on the river, light-hearted jokes about family quirks. Over months, the tone changed. The frequency increased, the subject matter narrowed. As oxycodone fogged Ellie's mind and confusion rolled in like the persistent coastal mist that sometimes blanketed the village for days on end, Nathan started making unannounced trips from the West Coast. 3 times he appeared, always carrying thoughtful gifts. Rare herbal teas from a Pike Place vendor, softwool blankets he claimed were just like the one she used in it, a framed photo of the Puget Sound at dusk. He spent long hours alone with her in the bedroom, door closed, voices murmuring low enough that even the home health aide couldn't catch the words. Claire visited every single day, often twice, brewing chamomile tea exactly the way Ellie liked it. Steep 4 minutes, no honey, adjusting pillows behind her back, holding her fragile hand while speaking softly about updating things so the family stays protected, and making sure everything is fair so no one gets left behind or forgotten. They guided her, step by careful step, to Nathan's old law school friend, Marcus Hale, a probate attorney who prepared the new documents without recording any formal evaluation of her mental capacity, without a single note questioning whether she truly understood what she was signing away. By the afternoon Ellie passed, The revised will was already filed and locked in place. The rental building, appraised at $480,000, deeded outright to Nathan. The investment accounts, roughly $250,000, structured through a series of layered trusts that heavily favored him and minimized taxes on his share. The riverfront house would be listed and sold, proceeds divided evenly on paper. But Nathan, named executor with sweeping discretionary powers, controlled every meaningful decision. The timing of the listing, which repairs, or deliberate lack thereof, to authorize, even the acceptable sale price range. From a distance it looked equitable. Up close it was surgical disinheritance. Grief wrapped me like fog. I signed documents on autopilot, barely reading the fine print, and returned to my civil engineering office, losing myself in bridge schematics, load calculations, and site surveys that demanded precision I could still control. 11 months later, the illusion shattered. My CPA of 20 years, someone who had filed our taxes since Claire and I bought our first home together, asked me to come into his small office overlooking the Mystic Harbor. He closed the door with a quiet click that felt louder than it should. He slid one bank statement printout across the desk and spoke in a low, careful tone. "Thomas, why did your mother transfer $78,000 to a Delaware LLC during the final weeks she was in hospice?" My heart slammed against my ribs so violently I tasted metal in my mouth. Coffee jerked from the mug, scalding my knuckles and pooling dark on the polished wood. My fingers trembled. The numbers on the page swam and blurred. Stomach plunged as though the floor had dropped away beneath me. I stared up at the acoustic ceiling tiles, counting the tiny perforations in endless rows to keep from spiraling into panic. Breath came in short, ragged pulls. This wasn't vague suspicion anymore. This was concrete evidence, dates, amounts, routing numbers, pointing directly at my brother and my wife. I thanked him quietly, folded the paper into my jacket pocket, drove home through the late afternoon light with the radio off and the windows up. Ellie's voice anchored me through the roar in my head. "Never show your hand until the game is over." I didn't confront them. I started digging in silence. A forensic accountant I hired worked methodically for 5 months, tracing 5 separate transfers totaling $112,000, all landing in that same Delaware shell company ultimately tied to Nathan's wife. I assembled a discreet team, a battle-tested new London probate litigator who had handled dozens of elder abuse cases, a specialist in financial exploitation of the elderly, a neurologist who pored over medical charts and highlighted documented episodes of disorientation, nurses' notes of Ellie repeatedly calling out for Thomas in confusion and distress during Nathan's bedside visits. A retired home health aide from nearby Groton stepped forward with a sworn affidavit. She described watching Nathan place documents in front of Ellie, hearing her hesitant, uncertain voice ask, "Is this what I want?" Feeling the room's atmosphere thicken with unspoken pressure every time he visited. Marcus Hale's professional armor cracked quickly under discovery. No independent capacity evaluation. No disinterested witnesses. No video record. A prior 2018 Connecticut bar complaint for nearly identical negligence involving another elderly client resurfaced in the records. We filed the formal grievance with the bar the same afternoon. We petitioned the court to invalidate the revised will. And then I saw the text. Everything changed in that instant. Probate subpoenas, opened by the fraud allegations, uncovered Claire's secret prepaid burner phone records. The messages weren't merely logistical. They were gleeful, mocking, triumphant. He's stuck at the hospital all night again. Perfect opening. Once the ink dries, he'll wake up broke and clueless. He thinks he's a strong one. Wait till he sees. They align precisely with my lowest moments. Endless sleet-slick drives to radiation appointments, sleeping in stiff vinyl waiting room chairs, eating cold vending machine sandwiches while arguing with insurance representatives on hold for hours. While I fought alone to keep her comfortable, they were laughing at how blind and trusting I remained. My hand shook so badly, I had to set the phone down twice to keep from dropping it. Heart pounded until my chest ached with every beat. Stomach knotted so tight, I tasted bile rising in my throat. I sat alone in the dark kitchen we'd shared for 22 years, the table lamp flickering weakly overhead, rereading every single message until the betrayal seared itself into muscle memory. Divorce papers were served on a cold, gray Wednesday morning. No dramatic scene, no raised voices. I had already moved liquid assets into a fully compliant, irrevocable trust on my attorney's advice. Claire's lawyer dug deep for leverage and found almost nothing left beyond the bare minimum of community property. 18 months of probate court followed. Long, tense hearings in the historic New London courthouse. Wooden benches creaking under shifting weight, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like trapped insects. Expert testimony mounted relentlessly. The neurologist on incapacity, the aide on coercion, exhibits of texts and emails exposing the conspiracy under unforgiving light. Then the climax arrived. The judge's ruling. The gavel struck sharp and final, echoing off the high ceilings like a door slamming shut forever. Nathan's face drained to the color of old paper. He gripped the railing until his knuckles blanched white and a small flake of varnish chipped away under his nails. Claire sat rigid beside her attorney. Her stack of papers slipped from trembling fingers and drifted to the floor in slow, silent spirals like dying autumn leaves. Her mouth opened once. No sound came. A low hiss of whispers spread through the gallery spectators. Silence fell, thick and irreversible. The revised will was voided entirely. Ellie's original document, equal division between her two sons, was reinstated. Nathan was ordered to repay every diverted dollar plus 8% compounded interest, cover the majority of my legal fees, deducted directly from his share, and pay an additional surcharge for executor misconduct. Marcus Hale received a public censure from the Connecticut Bar, 40 hours of mandatory ethics, continuing legal education, and 2 years probation. His once busy solo practice collapsed overnight. Referrals vanished as though a switch had been flipped. He retreated to a low-profile staff position at a mid-sized firm in Hartford, his professional standing permanently scarred. Nathan's life unraveled thread by thread. Liens piled onto the rental property until it sold at a forced auction far below market value. He couldn't refinance his Seattle condo. Court judgments swallowed it whole. Last I heard through distant mutual contacts, he was drifting between friends' spare couches and cheap extended-stay motels. Pride stripped bare. No more holiday cards. No outreach. Just absence. Claire's world contracted too. She relocated to a plain one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Hartford, surviving on sporadic freelance bookkeeping gigs. She stopped walking the river paths we used to share at sunset. She no longer says Ellie's name in conversation. 2 years after her passing, I donated $40,000 from my recovered share to the local hospice that had eased Ellie's final weeks with such compassion. They transformed a small, sunny room into a permanent reading corner in her honor. Soft armchairs arranged in a circle, tall windows framing the river view, shelves stocked with books she would have loved recommending. I visit sometimes. I sit in one of the chairs. I breathe. It feels like the closest thing to peace I've known since she left. These days I've found something new to fill the quiet hours. Woodworking in the garage she left me. Nothing elaborate, just simple, precise projects that demand focus and patience. A set of bookshelves for the reading nook at the hospice. A porch swing modeled after the one on her old house. Small keepsake boxes with dovetail joints that take hours of careful measuring and cutting. The smell of fresh-cut pine. The steady rasp of sandpaper smoothing rough edges. The quiet satisfaction of measuring twice and cutting once. It's meditative. Forgiving in a way people so rarely are. It reminds me of her. Careful, deliberate, built to last. Was it worth the years stolen from my life? The money poured into uncovering truth? The permanent fractures in blood and marriage? I didn't seek revenge. I simply finished the lesson they started. I still see her nook in dreams. Fog on the glass. Warm lamp, glow on worn book spines. Every story safe and exactly where it belongs. She'd understand. If this story of betrayal uncovered, patience rewarded, and justice delivered quietly touched something in you, Please subscribe for more accounts like this. Hit that button. There are always more stories of people reclaiming what was taken, waiting to be told.